Alrighty, so today I'm going to be drawing with a Zebra Sarasa pen for the first time, which I am looking forward to doing a little bit more so than not, I will acknowledge. I haven't really heard a lot about Zebra Sarasa pens because I don't believe that they are particularly common in the United States, and the United States is where I'm from. But from what I can tell, this line of Zebra pens is a little bit more common and maybe is a little bit more popular in other countries around the world. And so as such, I certainly am looking forward to finding out just how bad this pen actually is. I certainly am looking forward to giving this specific Zebra Sarasa 0.5 millimeter sized pen with red ink a little bit of a review, and I certainly am just in general looking forward to finding out just how bad this pen is, and I'm looking forward to letting you guys know what my thoughts are on it as well. To say the least, I am looking forward to drawing with and to reviewing a Zebra Sarasa pen for the first time in today's video. But I do suppose I should probably go ahead and hop right into the review now, shouldn't I? So let's go ahead and first off, go over the packaging of this pen. Then after that, I'm going to go ahead and get the packaging all opened up. I'm going to go and get the pen all out. I'm going to go and let you guys know what the pen actually looks like, what it feels like, what the quality of it is like, what it feels like in hand, what the weight of it is like, basically everything that you may want to know. And then after that, I'm going to go ahead and actually draw with the Zebra Sarasa pen for the first time, and I'm going to go and let you guys know what I think it's like to draw with, what I think it's like to write with, and everything like that. And then after that, I'm going to go and give you guys my final thoughts on this pen, and I'm going to go and give it a rating as well. But first off, as said, we got to start with the packaging, which in my personal opinion looks like this pen came from a department store, in all honesty. This looks like a piece of packaging that you would see at like Target or Walmart, or I do suppose the Japanese alternative of one of those, because the text on this packaging is all in Japanese. And frankly put, I don't know what a lot of the text says. I did not translate any of the text before this video, even though I probably should have, but I did not do that, so I don't know what this text says, nor what this text says, nor what this text says, nor what that text says. I can kind of infer what that text says, though. Don't know what that says. I don't know what pretty much any of the back of the packaging says at all. Besides that, I kind of know what that means. But yeah, I don't really know what a lot of the packaging is really doing, frankly put. But what I can say is that the background up here is red. Then we've got the Sarasa logo itself right here with some orange, some yellow, and then some more orange with a white border going all the way around it. The Sarasa text itself being all in white with a black drop shadow, looking very nice with a nice little bit of stylization, I definitely have to say. Just says Zebra up there, all in white on that red background. And then we go to a clear plastic right here with some little details on it and everything like that. And with the little details and text and whatnot, it really does just make me think that this packaging really did just come from a Japanese department store or something like that. Now, I'll acknowledge I did not buy this pen right here in Japan. In fact, I bought this pen in Canada, but I do think that this pen at least originally came from Japan, just based off the packaging, if I had to guess at least. I don't think they'd be selling a pen like this, or I don't think Zebra themselves would be selling this pen in Canada with this sort of packaging. I think somebody was reselling this pen in Canada. That's my best guess at least. But we can see in the center right here, we have a little bit of a red dot with some white text with a black and purple drop shadow. Just says 0.5 millimeter right there. And then we could see the ink of the pen itself is red. I'm sure that's what one of these things says somewhere on it, but I don't really know what a lot of it means, frankly. But those, as a whole, this it's pretty simple, basic sort of drugstore or like grocery store or convenience store sort of packaging. It's not bad by any means. It gets the job done. It looks very visually appealing, much more so than not, if you ask me at least. And while it's not a super fancy look by any means, it gets the job done and is definitely more eye-catching than not due to the red background, which definitely does do a good job of emphasizing the color of the ink of this pen as well. But, as a whole, the front of the packaging looks pretty solid if you ask me at least. Taking a look at the back, we can see it's pretty much just informational. It's just a white background with black text on it. This is just like how to throw away the plastic packaging and whatnot. And we just see some more information right there. It just says JF 0.5, so I assume that's some sort of like product code for this pen. We just see the barcode right there. It just says P-JJ3-R. Maybe that's like the product code for this specific pen. I'm not exactly sure, in all honesty. And then we see some more information down here. We can see there's a call line. There's a post office box. So I guess this is just sort of like Zebra's information within Japan and everything like that. And yeah, that's pretty much all there is to the back of the packaging. There's really not much going on, frankly put. The back of the packaging is pretty much just informational. The front of the packaging is really what matters when we're looking at designs and everything like that for for the packaging. But I think I've pretty much covered everything I wanted to cover. I think my favorite thing about this packaging as a whole is probably the red to clear up here. I think that is a very nice transition, especially with the curvature right here. And then I really like the Sarasa logo itself. I think it looks really good. But let's go ahead and get this packaging all opened up. And let's go ahead and get this pen all out, just like that. Pretty easy if I do say so myself. Let's go ahead and just put this packaging over to the side now. And let's go ahead and give this a little bit of a click. Pretty satisfying click, I'd have to say. Decently satisfying, in my opinion. Is it the most satisfying? Let's test it up against this one. It's a little bit higher pitched. It's a higher pitched click for sure, but a pretty satisfying click nonetheless, if you ask me at least. Certainly, no complaints on my behalf. Higher pitched click is pretty typical for a plastic pen, if you ask me at least. That's honestly, I just completely BS that. I don't know if it is typical. Let's try this. It's not typical for a plastic pen. This is basically just the plastic version of the same pen I was just clicking, and it has a lower pitch. So, yeah, no, I don't trust what I said about that. I was like, you know, it actually kind of makes sense for, like, a plastic pen to have a higher pitch, because, like, a plastic pen is not going to, like, be encapsulating the sound as much as, like, a metal pen. And then I was like, well, I'm just saying this completely without basis at all. I should really, like, actually test that. And now after testing that, it's not true at all. It's just that this pen has a higher pitch than some other pens out there, I definitely have to say. But a pretty satisfying click nonetheless, and feels pretty nice in hand to say the least. The overall weight of this pen is very much that of, well, much lighter than not. This is a much lighter pen than not, if I do say so myself. It's got a clear body up here. It's got a clear tip over here. Red little holding area for your fingers. Red clip, red little area up here, and a red press button right there as well. And we can see that the clip itself has a little bit of a clear area that it kind of just holds onto, just like that. So it makes a nice little bit of noise when you pull it. Overall, the look of this pen, it's a little bit more basic than not, if you ask me at least. Just the clear area over here has a little bit of a screw going in right there. We can see the spring right there as well. I do like the fact that this is clear and that it's perfectly clear, that it's not like a smoked clear or something like that kind of thing. I honestly really like the look of clear pens, and this looks pretty solid as well. This little grip area right here, just holding it, it's kind of grippy. It's not like super grippy by any means. It doesn't have lines going down like that, so it's not as grippy as something like, let's say, a Pilot G2, but it's not uncomfortable to hold by any means, I definitely have to say. I won't really know anything for sure until I actually get to drawing, though, but it feels pretty decent, and there's a little bit of a raised area, like it kind of gets raised just a little bit towards the end over here. Not really towards this side, but it gets raised a little bit towards the end over here, which definitely does do a good job of trying to make sure your fingers don't slide off while you're writing and whatnot. We can also see there's some vertical lines going down, just like that right there. And then moving on past this little bit of a silicone area where it's just kind of like where you're supposed to put your fingers and where it holds your fingers and everything like that, goes to the plastic body. Once again, the plastic body gets a little bit thinner after we go through the silicone area. And then we can see there's the area right there that I just pointed out. And we can see that it kind of goes to a red background in the clear, and then it goes to just a full red background. On the red clip right here, we can just see in silver, it just says Zebra, Sarasa, 0.5 right there. Nothing on top of this. Pretty basic look as a whole for a pen, in my personal opinion. Nothing more complex nor more simple than a Pilot G2. And in my personal opinion, the Zebra Sarasa pens are really supposed to get more jumbled up. They're really supposed to compete mainly with Pilot G2s. When we look at them side by side, the Zebra Sarasa is slightly shorter. Just very, very, very slightly shorter. Not by much, though. Not by much at all. And like thickness-wise, they're about the same. The clip is about the same height as well. I really do think the Zebra Sarasa is meant to compete with the Pilot G2, and it really does do a pretty good job of maintaining a similar aesthetic profile while looking a little bit different on its own. There are some little different intricacies that are different than the Pilot G2 in my personal opinion. I think it does a okay job at differentiating itself, although it's still very obviously something that is meant to compete with the Pilot G2, although who knows which one came first. Maybe the Pilot G2 came first, maybe the Zebra Sarasa came first. I'm really not sure, in all honesty. But satisfying click, decent sort of disposable pen look that is comparable to the Pilot G2 in my personal opinion. A pretty okay look as a whole, and I especially like the clear body. I think the clear body is really nice. How easily does it break down? Let's just go ahead and get the cap off just like that real quick. There we go. So cap comes off just like that. Spring comes out. So the spring is not attached to the insert. That's something that I have had complaints about with some pens previously, is that the spring comes attached to the insert. This, not so much, but when you do take it apart, you do need to be careful to keep an eye on the spring. Otherwise, it might roll away and disappear. That would not be very good. But, you know, comes out pretty easily. We can see this insert is a Zebra JF 0.5 Japan 2307. I don't know if that's the actual model for this insert, but we can just see that text right there. So if you guys are interested in what this insert is, I'm sure this text is probably going to be the most helpful bit of information. And we can see there's also a little bit of a wax bit on the end to make sure it doesn't get dried out and whatnot. Let's go ahead and get that off real quick, just like that. And I'm going to go ahead and put that to the side and throw that away after this video. Let's go ahead and get everything back in though. See how easily this comes back together. Let's go and get the spring on there. Once again, we can see the spring. It's got like thick area up here, thick area in the middle, and thick area down here. Just putting that back together. And then just like that, there's definitely a little bit of pressure from the spring. Trying to push it back, but nothing too hard by any means. It's not difficult to put back together by any means, I definitely have to say. And still works just fine. Well, without further ado, let's go ahead and grab my Soho Urban Artist Sketchbook, and let's go ahead and get to drawing momentarily. First off, I want to go ahead and talk about weight of the pen and weight of the pen in your hand as well, though. And the reason why I've grabbed my sketchbook is just because it's kind of hard to tell what the weight of the pen in your hand is like until you really get to drawing sometimes. So I want to make sure I'm doing some tests while I'm doing this to really get a good idea of what the weight in your pen is actually, or what the weight of the pen in your hand is actually like. Get my words a little bit jumbled up. It's been a while since I've done a little bit of a stationary review, in all honesty, and now my nose is like really itchy. My nose is, oh man, my nose is like super itchy. It just came on all of a sudden, like the last 15 seconds. My nose has been really itchy. I don't know why that came on all of a sudden. I probably scratched it the wrong way or something like that kind of thing earlier. Not exactly sure, but just feeling this pen in hand, it appears to be more back heavy than front heavy. The pen as a whole is much lighter than not. Is it lighter than a Pilot G2? This Pilot G2 is kind of low-key empty, so it's not really a good comparison, whereas this one's full, of course. The Pilot G2 is lighter, I want to say, just because this one doesn't have a lot of ink in it by any means, but it's not like significantly lighter by any means, and I literally think it's just the ink. But this pen, as you would expect, is pretty light. It's not heavy by any means. It's a plastic body pen. Of course, it's going to be a little bit lighter than not, but it's pretty heavy. It's not pretty heavy. It's pretty light, but it's got an okay weight to it by any means. It's not like super duper light by any means. And I'd have to say the main amount of weight is probably over the back with it out. I'd have to say the main amount of weight definitely shifts down a little bit and shifts towards the paper. So I'd have to say with this out, it feels like it's mostly towards the back. And with this, or with that out, with that in, it's mostly towards the back, and with it out, it's decently center weighted, but a little bit more towards the bottom than not, I definitely have to say. So I'd have to say, just based off of the weight alone, without knowing how this pen writes or draws, I'd have to say that this pen is probably good for both drawing and writing. I've noticed that pens that are weighted towards the back tend, for me at least, to be a little bit better for writing, and pens that are weighted towards the front tend to be a little bit better for drawing. Since this pen is so evenly weighted, I do think it's probably going to be pretty decent for both, although it is a little bit more heavily weighted towards the front than the back, I will acknowledge. But, without further ado, let's go ahead and do some tests real quick. Let's just go ahead and get this pen warmed up by just drawing Joe right there. Right off the bat, this is definitely a 0.5 pen. You can definitely tell it is a little bit scratchy, but it is pretty smooth. There's definitely a little bit of roughness. You can definitely feel the paper underneath the pen. But it's a little bit smoother than not, and it's not super rough by any means. So just, you can hear the roughness, and you can definitely feel it as well. So this pen is definitely best for very smooth paper. Using this pen on rough paper is probably not going to give you the greatest experience in the world, and since this is a 0.5 pen, you do run the risk of possibly going through, especially rough paper. This is not super rough paper though, so I'm not going to be running the risk of that today unless I really go super heavy with it. But I'd have to say this is definitely better for smoother paper than not, but it can be used on rough paper if you want to. The red ink itself is quite vibrant. I would have to describe it as being a slightly dark, slightly bright red color, although definitely a little bit darker than not, but definitely not like a burgundy per se. It is a dark, bright, bold red, not a burgundy, not a sort of wine color, a bright, bold red that looks pretty decent as a whole and does not appear to be losing any of its color once it starts kind of drying a little bit more so than not. One test I want to do real quick. I just want to go and put that down, smear it. A little bit of smearing right there. When you do one line. Okay, so this pen does smear a little bit, but let's just kind of leave that just for a second. So it does smear. Okay, so I'd have to say this pen doesn't dry as fast as something like, let's say, a Sharpie S-Gel, or maybe a Uniball, what's it called? I've got it over here. A Uniball Zento, that's what it is. It doesn't dry quite as fast as something like, let's say, a Uniball Zento, or a Sharpie S-Gel, or something like that. But I'd have to say this pen definitely dries faster than a Pilot G2. Pilot G2 ink is notorious for being fantastic, but also for drying very, very, very slowly. And I personally think that Pilot G2s dry very slowly. This definitely does not appear to dry as slowly as a Pilot G2, especially if you're not doing lines over lines over lines, but it definitely does dry slower than some other comparable competitive pens, I definitely have to say. On paper though, it feels pretty nice. It's a 0.5, so it definitely does feel a little bit rougher than not, but you know, it's not bad. It's not bad by any means. It's not super rough. It's not too rough. It's pretty pleasant to just kind of scribble with, I definitely have to say. And when you're just trying to write something, let's just write a cigarette. When you're holding at an angle and everything like that, and when you're just writing, your pen is not really on the paper enough to notice the roughness. You really only notice the roughness when you're doing long strips of drawings and whatnot kind of thing, but when you're just drawing beer. When you're just drawing beer right there, it doesn't really seem to matter in all honesty, and I don't really notice the roughness at all. When I'm just writing, I really only notice the roughness due to the size because of just longer lines and not taking my pen off the paper as much, I definitely have to say. So when you're drawing, you might notice some roughness. When you're writing, I highly doubt you're going to notice any unless you're using especially rough paper. But if you're drawing, I definitely have to say, use this on, I'd have to say, smoother paper than not if you have some. If not, it's no biggie if you use it on paper like this or a little bit rougher paper. If you're drawing, or sorry, not drawing, if you're writing, it doesn't really matter what kind of paper you're using this on as long as it's not like super rough by any means. Moving on to the other page, I think I'm going to do a little bit of a drawing and I'm going to test just like how far the angle can go over. So let's do, I'm thinking just a little bit of a fish. Let's do just a little bit of a fish. So I'm just going to go ahead and start off. Make sure my notebook's all centered, just like that. So I'm going to do a little bit of a fish, just like right there. There we go. I'm going to do it at an angle, just like that. All right, so I was about at that angle, going around here. So I'd have to say, you definitely don't want to be using this pen at too much of an angle, but at a little bit of an angle, it's not so bad. Like I was doing a little bit of an angle right here, and it wasn't so bad by any means. But definitely when you're using this pen at an angle, the ink comes through as being a little bit thinner than when you're just using it straight on, pretty much straight up and down, like it was almost right here. I was using it like at a very, very, very slight angle right here, but at a much deeper angle, it definitely comes through as being a little bit thinner. I'd have to say this pen handles angles okay, definitely better than some other pens. But I'd have to say maybe not as good as the Pilot G2, but not super badly when compared to the Pilot G2 either. And there we go. Not the greatest fish I've ever drawn, but good for a test. Let's go ahead, try drawing something else. And the lines themselves, they're pretty smooth lines, but you can definitely make them look a little bit scratchy if you want to. But I'd have to say, as a whole, pretty smooth lines from this pen. They don't look particularly scratchy, even though the size of this pen, which is a 0.5 size, is a little bit smaller than is a little bit smaller than the size that I'm used to using. I generally use 0.7 millimeter size, and you can definitely tell this is a little bit smaller than a 0.7, of course, and a little bit more scratchy looking, but really it's a very smooth line. It really is a very smooth line on the paper, even with the paper I'm using right now not being the smoothest paper in the world. As a whole, you know, I'd have to say I like this pen. I do like it. It's not like the best pen I've ever used. Is it better than a Pilot G2? I wouldn't say it's better, but it's actually maybe about the same as a Pilot G2. It's really not bad. It's really not bad. I do still think I prefer the Pilot G2 just because it's kind of what I've stuck with for so long. But, you know, not a bad pen at all. Not a bad pen at all. And I kind of think I know what rating I'm going to be giving this pen. Not too bad. I'm just going to go ahead and finish off this drawing real quick, and then after that, I think I'm going to go and give you guys my final thoughts, because I think I've covered everything I wanted to cover. I've covered the packaging, I covered the weight of the pen, the look of the pen, how the pen is weighted. I've covered the ink, how vibrant it is, what the color is like. The color is pretty true to form. The ink is a little bit more vibrant than not for sure, especially when you layer it. And I'd have to say, I think that's pretty much everything I wanted to cover. Oh, yep, from an angle as well, it does draw okay. Not the greatest, but okay nonetheless. But that's not really a super big deal by any means. You just got to be careful about it. But, yeah, you know, I'd have to say this is a more solid pen than not. It's easy to see why Zebra Sarasa pens are popular. I do like the 0.5 size of this. I think it's pretty good. I do think a 0.7 or a 1.0 would be a bit overkill. I like using a 0.7 Pilot G2, but sometimes I honestly feel like it is a bit overkill. And I think using a 0.7 size of this would be a bit overkill as well. I think it would probably smear too much by accident. I think a 0.5 size of this or smaller is probably just about ideal, in all honesty. I wouldn't really want to use anything bigger of a size from this pen right here. But, you know, as a whole, this specific version of the Zebra Sarasa, you know, I think I like it. I think I like it more so than not, and I definitely have enjoyed drawing and writing with it today. Alrighty. Well, there we go. That is like my first full drawing with this pen all done. I'm just going to clean it up just a little bit. And then after that, I think I'm going to go ahead and kind of give you guys my final thoughts on this pen. And after that, I'm going to go ahead and give it a rating and whatnot. I almost forgot to go over this design again. Gotta go over this design again. I can't believe I almost forgot to do that. That is not cool of me. That is not cool. What can I say? Gotta make sure I go over the design again to make it look a little bit thicker, to make it look a little bit more distinct and whatnot. Cannot believe me. Doing myself dirty. Alrighty, y'all. Well, I think that's pretty much all I wanted to do for this drawing today. As a whole, I'm pretty satisfied with the drawing, and I gotta admit, I'm pretty satisfied with this pen as well. I've been wanting a smaller than not red gel pen for a while, and I'll admit that this pen fits my criteria. Do I like this pen? Yeah, I'd have to say I do. I do like this pen. I think this pen is pretty solid. It's definitely not like the best pen I've ever used. I've definitely used better gel pens in the future, and I'll acknowledge that I think Pilot G2 0.5s are probably more to my preference. In fact, I'm not going to say they probably are more to my preference. They are more to my preference. That's just how it is. But you know, the Zebra Sarasa is still a pretty solid pen nonetheless. And I think that this Zebra Sarasa 0.5 millimeter size pen right here deserves a solid 3 out of 4. Would I buy this pen right here again? 100%. But is it like my favorite pen ever? By no means. By no means. For context, my rating scale goes from 1 to 4, with 1 being like, this is horrible, never buy this, 2 being like, maybe it's some people's preferences, and 3 being like, this is pretty solid, I'd buy it again, but it's not like the best thing ever, and then 4 out of 4 is like, this is the best thing ever. This is not like the best thing ever by any means, but neither is a base Pilot G2. Only when you stick a Pilot G2 insert into like a Pilot Metropolitan or a Pilot G2 Limited does it become like a 4 to 4, the best thing ever. And I think if I stuck this insert in a pen that was metal and had a little bit more weight to it and was a little bit more to my preference, weight-wise and whatnot, I really do think that with this insert, it could get a little bit closer to a 4 out of 4 in all honesty, but for the moment in time, this is a very, very, very solid 3 out of 4 for the Zebra Sarasa gel pen. I think it's pretty solid if you ask me at least, and I do want to acknowledge a 3 out of 4 is not a bad rating at all. It might sound like a bad rating. It's not, though. A 3 out of 4 is not a bad rating at all. It's just saying that it's not as good as a 4 out of 4. But, let me know in the comments down below what you guys think of the Zebra Sarasa. I know I have certainly enjoyed drawing with one of the Zebra Sarasas for the first time today, and I certainly am looking forward to maybe trying more Zebra Sarasas in the future. Let me know in the comments down below what you guys think of this line of pens from Zebra. Do you guys like them? Do you guys not? Let me know in the comments down below, and let me know if what I said during today's video sounds accurate to y'all, if y'all have previous experience with this pen right here. But yeah. Certainly hope you guys have enjoyed watching this video where I drew with and reviewed a Zebra Sarasa gel pen. Certainly hope you guys have enjoyed watching this video today. If you guys have, of course, please make sure to like and subscribe for more content. I have my Instagram, my book, my merch, my P.O. Box, and my main channel all in the description down below. Go check it all out. But yeah, thank you so much for watching, y'all. To the next one, stay safe and peace and have a great one. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You know what I'm saying?